Day 2 of the 2024 St. Louis Rapid Blitz saw multiple players join the lead after the second day of rapid action. Jumping into the results, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave came into the day as the early leader, but was held to 3 draws, allowing both Jan Nepomniachtchi and Alireza Firouzja to catch up in the standings after each scoring wins. Now heading into day 3 of the Rapid, it's MVL, Nepo, and Firouzja all tied for first with 8 out of 12 points. Going into the games, we'll once again take a look at 3 key moments from the day's action, and we'll start with this game between Firouzja and Hikaru Nakamura. This was from round 4 in the event, the first rapid round of the day. Once again, time control for the rapid in this tournament is 25 plus 10, with the rapid games counting for double, as the players are then going to play 2 whole days of blitz with a double round robin. So in this game, Firouzja was putting a lot of pressure against Hikaru. Actually had a big advantage early on. Here he was continuing to try to win in this endgame, and in pretty severe time trouble, this is where Hikaru panics and ends up going wrong. White has just played the move a6, looking to create some kind of weakness or pass pawn on the queen side, and black could have just taken this one. After b takes a6, now it looks scary for black because rook a3 and rook d6, both of these moves run into bishop to c5, which would be winning for white. But black would have the move bishop to b5. And then white can try rook to a1 here to defend the pawn and try to take on a7. But after rook to d7, black should be holding on here. If rook a5, there's bishop to d3, and it seems like white isn't going to be able to make further progress. Instead, after a6, Hikaru goes b6, which is a very serious mistake because now that allows rook to c7. White's rook comes in on the 7th rank. He's hitting the a-pawn. After bishop takes b5, rook takes a7. Now white's rook, surprisingly, is in front of the pawn, but this pawn is passed and very, very strong. So black can get behind it with rook a3, but check a7. And after rook to a6, bishop takes b6 is a very nice move from Firouzja. If rook takes b6, then white can move the rook, and he's going to be promoting. So for example, rook to c8 here is nice. Rook to b8 is also winning as well. So after bishop takes b6, it's basically all over. Bishop c6 was tried, but now rook to c8 takes, rook takes c6. Black has to give check to get behind the pawn, but now rook to c7. The players ended up in this rook and pawn endgame, but this one gives white really, really good winning chances as the rook is just really well placed on the 7th rank. So here Firouzja starts to convert, bringing the king in. Hikaru looks for counterplay on the king side. Takes, white brings the king to b3. Now the king can make progress up the board. f3, kind of an important move here. h3, this is black's last chance for counterplay, hoping to take the pawn, but rook to g7, very important move from Firouzja to cut off black's king. And after takes, king to b4, it's basically all over here. The problem is black's king can't approach the pawn, and this rook also can't take the pawn because then, of course, white's a-pawn is promoting. So white's king here is just advancing. Firouzja went king to b5, and Nakamura was forced to resign as it's really just hopeless. The king is going to run up to b8. Eventually, the rook can shield the king from any checks, and black is going to be way too slow to stop this pawn from eventually promoting. So this is one of Firouzja's 2 wins on the day. Next up, we've got Nepomniachtchi, who came into the day a point behind MVL, who was leading, and he picks up a very, very big win here against Dominguez in this endgame. Earlier, white was maybe pressing a little bit, but black was actually more or less fine. But at this point, black has had the advantage for some time. Now here, Nepo takes on g4. The engine's actually liked f6 here better, keeping this one defended and possibly looking to take on g4 with the rook. After bishop takes g4, bishop d6 check is played, king to d7, and Dominguez makes a very serious mistake with king takes e4. Not an easy endgame to play. At this point, Dominguez is actually down to the increment, whereas if the chess.com clocks are correct, Nepo had over 22 minutes at this point. So huge time advantage for Nepo here. Apparently bishop to b8 would have kept the endgame somewhat holdable for white, just keeping the bishop lashed onto this pawn and making it difficult for black to make further progress. Instead, Dominguez takes on e4, but now bishop to f5 check, a very, very nice trick from Nepo. The point is, if king takes e5, then that walks into bishop to e6 check, and white has a hard time keeping the bishop on d6 defended. So if king f6, for example, then there's rook f5 check, and then next black will take this one and extra piece in the endgame, this one is basically over. So bishop f5 check. Now white goes king to d5. His last chance was really just king to e3, and then the game would continue. Black can go bishop to g6. This would be the strongest move. White would have a chance to save the bishop, but then black would have two connected passers and probably excellent winning chances with these two pawns. Instead, king to d5 was played, but this ends up losing after bishop to e6 check. Once again, white has a hard time keeping this bishop defended. Here, Dominguez resigned because if king to c5, then black can just play e4 check, opening up the rook. And once again, black is picking up the bishop here on d6, and it's game over. So big win for Nepo, allowing him to join the lead as well. Next up, we're back to Firouzja. This is his round 6 game against Nodirbek Abdusattorov. And this one was very, very chaotic. We have a very sharp endgame here. White is actually up 2 pawns in this position, but it's not so clear as at any moment black can play b6 and force white to sacrifice the exchange with rook takes a6. And black probably should have done it just right away here. b6, rook takes a6, and even king b7. This move for black would keep the game equal according to the engines, although it's very, very sharp after knight to b5, king takes a6, knight d6 check. And okay, apparently it's supposed to end in some kind of equal position. Instead, Nodirbek goes rook to e7, but now rook to d1, and white starts to get active here, b6, but now this is a worse version, because after rook takes a6, here king to b7 is no longer good. After knight to b5, the rook on c8 is undefended, so king takes a6, for example, knight d6 check, and then knight takes c8, and that's going to be a big problem. White is going to be up a lot of material here. So now rook takes a6, Nodirbek takes this one, bishop takes a6, and this position very, very sharp. White has a lot of pawns for the exchange, but black's rooks do get active. Both players here not playing this one perfectly, but it's a rapid game, and yeah, very sharp and complicated position. But we do get knight to b5 check, king to d7, takes, bishop to b7, very key regrouping, putting the bishop on the long diagonal where it can defend white's king side and eventually support the queen side push. And that's what ends up winning Firouzja this game. He starts running the a-pawn up the board. a5 now, knight c7, white's knight drops back. And this one ends up being very, very difficult for black to play. Nodirbek tries to create this counterplay on the king side, but eventually white just picks up the whole queen side here and does launch with b4. And these 3 pawns on the queen side are just way too strong. Now king to d2, using the king to help out as well. All of white's pieces helping the queen side, whereas black hasn't made a passed pawn yet on the king side. So white is just way ahead in this pawn race. And despite being down the exchange, white is just completely winning this endgame. So bishop to b7, getting ready to push a6 with knight to c5, a6, and so on. King to b3, going after the rook, king to b2. And the rook is forced to leave. If rook a4, then bishop to c6, and the rook would just be trapped. So rook to g1, a6, and Nodirbek resign here as the a-pawn is about to promote. Black is basically going to have to give the knight up for the pawn, and after something like takes, white's b-pawn is now very strong and very fast. Eventually, black will have to give up the rook for this pawn, and then white is going to have at least 1 pawn remaining after that. If not, then Firouzja probably knows how to checkmate with a bishop and knight. So it's pretty hopeless from here, and Nodirbek decided to resign. So with this second win, Firouzja also manages to jump into the shared lead with both MVL and Nepo. That takes us into tomorrow's day 3, where we're going to have the final 3 rounds of Rapid before heading into 2 days of Blitz. In the morning, round 7, we're going to have a very key matchup between MVL White against Nepo. Folks, who do you think is going to win the event? Send your predictions in the comments below, and we'll see if you're right when it all plays out. All right, that's going to do it for this recap. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.